Welcome to Improve Your English Writing, video number 5. This video is going to cover purpose, audience, document content, document word choice, and document organization. If you'd like to get notifications for the series, please click subscribe. If you like the video or find it useful, please hit like and check out links to books and videos in the description. So basically, I just covered the essential components of grammar. So let's move into writing, and let's start off by saying that all writing has a purpose and an audience. So it could be an email about a customer complaint to a coworker. So the purpose would be the customer complaint, the audience would be the coworker. Or it could be a term paper on the Great Recession to an economics professor. The purpose would be writing about the Great Recession. The audience would be the economics professor. So the purpose is always known. So you always have a reason to be writing, or you know the reason you are writing. And basically, write to your audience. Your audience will determine your content, your word choice, and your organization. And this video is going to drill down to each one of these. So an example could be you're writing about the Great Recession to your economics professor and to an interested friend. Let's just say it's an email. This one is a term paper. So the purpose is the same. You're writing about the Great Recession, but the content, word choice, and organization may differ. For example, maybe the term paper is going to be longer. It's going to cover maybe more aspects or technical aspects. The word choice will be different. It'll be the term paper will probably be more academic, using language or that economic type language. The language to an interested friend may be more of a what I'm going to call average terms. You're not going to use any technical economic terms. You're going to use terms that are familiar to your friend. And the organization may be different. Maybe to the interested friend, you're just talking about the historical. Maybe you just take it in chronological order. And maybe the economics professor, you actually list 3 things that you found or would cause the Great Recession, and you list them in order from the biggest cause to the least cause. You could have the same organization with the interested friend too. So it could differ, but you can see how the topic's the same, but the content, the word choice, and the organization may differ depending on who it is. They could be very similar, or at least definitely the content and the organization. In this case, maybe the word choice will be different, or it would be more technical with the economics professor. So let's talk about content and word choice. So content, basically, the content will vary based upon the audience's knowledge and understanding. So going back to that example with the Great Recession, if this is to an economics professor, your interested friend is probably not going to know a lot of the technical economic language and details. So just an example. And probably one of the biggest problems with content is that people go on to have very lengthy, detailed explanations when they are often unnecessary. But so going along with this first bullet is too much content or explanation basically keeps your reader from focusing on the purpose. They get lost in the details of the explanation, or maybe it's an example. They basically keeps them from focusing. They just get lost. The flip side of that is that too little content or explanation creates questions in the audience's mind, or they don't understand the content. If you cover too brief, they'll miss things that you wanted them to understand, and they won't get it. And this will create questions. So you have to find the middle way. You can't do too much. You can't do too little. So word choice. Basically, you have to use words your audience knows and understands. Going back, I keep pounding this example. You can't use technical economic theory, maybe statistics and things like that to with your friend. Well, if your friend knows it, great, you can use it with them. But maybe to a person that doesn't know about the economics or what went on, you have to use language that they understand. So always use language the audience understands. And just an example from my own field of work, since my first video, if you don't know, I'm actually a pavement engineer in the state of California, and I can get an email from a resident saying, "Oh, my road is in, or this road is in terrible condition. Um, uh, what are you going to do about it?" Just making something up. But I do get emails about the pavement condition, and just from my own experience or background, this is how the example of how you use words the audience knows and understands. So I'm writing, so this person writes, has a complaint about the roadway. An email to a coworker, I'm going to use language they understand, and I may use what's called the pavement condition index. This is a numerical rating from 0 to 100, 0 being the worst, 100 being the best. And I may write that it's a 55. Now, for people that don't know, pavement condition index pavement condition index, when you say something's from 0 to 100, they start thinking like rating scales like A, B, C, D, and F. So if they heard 55, they'd think, oh, geez, that's like a D. But actually, in the pavement condition index, that's actually a fair rating. But I don't expect the audience to know this, and I've looked how much I've had to explain it to you just to show you this example. But I would use this language to a coworker that understands it, but to the audience, like the person that wrote me an email, I would not use that. I would actually use language they understand. I would say, "Oh, that road you wrote about, it's actually, in fair condition," and they would understand or have a very likelihood of understanding. If I said the pavement is fair, good, excellent, poor, people have a general concept of what that is. I've never had anyone write me back asking what technically fair is, believe it or not. So, but I'm going to use language they understand. I'm going to say it's fair because they understand the word fair, poor, good. They don't understand this pavement index. So I'm using language. So here's an example of my own thing of where I use language, depending on the audience that they understand. You have to do the same thing in your writing. You can't use language they don't understand. You may have to explain things, and then you can use it. So that's word choice. Now, organization improves clarity because you're presenting the information in a logical order. And also, you may use an organization that people are familiar with. And one of those organizations that people are familiar with or know, or at least they've seen, maybe they don't know all the technical details, but many people know or have seen or have read an organization called Introduction, Body, and Conclusion. So in the introduction, you state your purpose. Remember, all writing has a purpose, so in here we state our purpose. Now, this can be, this introduction, body, conclusion can work for anything. This could work for an email, could work for a report, it could work for an essay. But basically, in the introduction, you state your purpose. You can also use the introduction. These, the next, I think, 2 or 3 bullets are just things you can include in the introduction, but not necessary. But the introduction, you're required to state your purpose. You could use the introduction to grab your audience's attention, or to explain how or why the purpose is important. Now, some forms of writing, like an email, you don't really need to grab your audience's attention, but in an essay, you might need to, or in an article in a newspaper, you may need to. So these 2 bullets, or maybe there's 3, I think there's only 2, are optional. Then there's the body. So the body fulfills the purpose stated in the introduction. We're going to leave it sort of generic like that. We're going to get around to what is fulfilling this purpose. But the body, this is where the main, the bulk of the writing occurs, is in the body. I'm going to get a little bit more specific with this one. And then you have the conclusion. So this ends the document. And in the conclusion, you do 2 or 3 things. You summarize the key points in the body. You restate the purpose. You can restate the purpose if it's necessary. And you use words echoing the introduction. You don't want to just copy the introduction, but you would restate it by echoing the introduction. It could also have what's called a call to action or a course of action. So let me give you an example. So in academic work, especially like in high school and in college, there's what's called the 5-paragraph essay. So what the 5-paragraph essay really is the first paragraph is an introduction where you state your purpose, and in the introduction you usually give 3 points. So we're going back to that Great Recession to an economics professor, you'd say, I'm writing about the Great Recession, stating your purpose, and it was caused by these 3 items. So in the 5-paragraph essay, that's paragraph 1, and then you list 3 points or 3 reasons or 3 points into your introduction, and then you fulfill those in the body. So if in the introduction you said the Great Recession caused by these 3 points, then you would have 3 paragraphs on each one of those points. Personally, I'm not giving 3 reasons because I can't really name 3 reasons. I can probably name 1 for the Great Recession. And then after those 3 paragraphs, then you have a final paragraph on the conclusion where you would summarize, the key points in the paragraphs. You would, restate the purpose using different words, and you probably wouldn't have a course of action there. So that's an example. So you'd have, hopefully you can see 5 paragraphs. The one, or the introduction where you name 3 key points. Those, the next 3 paragraphs are on those 3 points in the introduction. Then you have a conclusion. But let's say, you're not really writing a 5-paragraph essay. You're writing an email. This email is about the upcoming wedding, planning the upcoming wedding. So, in the introduction to your email, you'd say, hey, we need to do these 3 things before the wedding. And then 4 things or 5 things before the wedding. And then you could go on. Maybe each paragraph has an explanation on each one of these things that need to be done. Maybe going back, you need to say, these are important to get done by a certain date. So therefore, in the introduction, it's about the wedding, they're important to get done, or here's why the email is important. Then you list your things in the body. Maybe, like I said, you list the 4 things. So in that case, you'd have 4 paragraphs. They could be short paragraphs. And then maybe at the end, you go back and you go over each one of those things again, maybe in bullet form. That way, someone can see a summary at the beginning or at the ending, and they say, hey, we need to get these done. Remember, we got get these done before the wedding. So you've come sort of full circle. So hopefully you can see how that works now in an essay about the Great Recession and in an email, how you can use this introduction, body, and conclusion format. It's a really common organization technique. So now let's move on to, we did cover the body. I said these are 3 paragraphs, but there's different ways to organize these 3 paragraphs or paragraphs in the body. Doesn't have to be 3. Let's cover those. So here's some ways to organize the body. The book has 10 methods. I believe I list 4 here, which are probably the most common. So the first way to organize the body is an argument from a general to specific. Basically what happens is you start with a general discussion, and then you move on to a specific information or examples. So, and then you would also cover any counter arguments that are important. So, in the introduction, you could list these, maybe there's you start off, or maybe the first paragraph of the body's on the general, and then the next, or how can I say this? Maybe in the introduction, you list 3 points, but you have 4 paragraphs in the body of the essay, and the first paragraph is on the general discussion, and then each paragraph takes a specific information or example, or maybe and then you have a paragraph on counterexamples or an important counterexample. So you can see how this is organized. Basically, it's general discussion, specific examples, and then important counterexamples. Another organization technique for the body is a discussion You discuss a problem and then you present one or more solutions. So, the first paragraph could be on the problem, and then maybe you list two or three solutions in the following paragraphs. Those solutions are then organized by best first or last first, or you arrange them by cost, or maybe the most difficult for some reason, maybe, I don't know, implementation, something like that. But you would have a method to organize these, best, first, last, cost, things like that. These are the most popular ways to organize the solutions. A third way to organize the body is by chronological. Basically, arrange the information or examples by time or sequence. I mentioned this in the example with the, email to a friend about the Great Recession, that you took it in chronological order of what happened for the reasons. You don't have to do it that way, but it is a way to organize this, or to organize the body. And then the fourth one is pros and cons. Basically, you group the information by advantages, which are called pros, and disadvantages called cons. So with the organization method that you choose really depends on what you're writing about and the specific things that need to go into the body. You'll find that the points that you want to cover are probably naturally going to arrange themselves into one of these, meaning you can't take a specific circumstance or thing you're writing about and push it into or force it into a chronological order. When you look at it, you realize that when you look through the various ways to organize the body, that one of the ways to organize is probably the best way to organize it. And once you find that way to organize it, you're improving clarity, because organization improves clarity. So that's really what you're after, is that the introduction, body, conclusion is going to, and these methods are going to organize the thing you're writing about, which will improve clarity. So that's it for this video. If you want to get notifications about this series, please click subscribe. If you like the content or you found it useful, please hit like, and check out links to books and videos in the description. Thank you.